Pittsburgh Steelers continue to wait for Aaron Rodgers to make up his mind on whether or not he will play in 2026. How can Pittsburgh take the next step after a busy offseason if Rodgers returns? And the Bears are looking to make a deeper run in year 2 under Ben Johnson, but find out why a different coach voicing accountability puts a spotlight on how to turn Chicago's weak link into a strength. Plus, Chargers' new offensive coordinator Mike McDaniel spoke this weekend about how he's been challenging quarterback Justin Herbert. What should we expect from this exciting new pairing? Glad you're here with us alongside Mina Kimes, Dan Graziano, and Andrew Hawkins. I'm Courtney Cronin, and we've got scheduling news, people. It is the most exciting week of the offseason. The first Sunday night football game was announced earlier today and will feature an NFC East showdown between the Cowboys and the Giants at MetLife Stadium. John Harbaugh will be making his coaching debut for the Big Blue on that night. This meeting will mark the 9th time the Cowboys and Giants have gone head-to-head in primetime in the season opener since the 1970 merger, which is the most for many two franchises in that time. Amazingly, though, Dallas a perfect 8-0 against the G-Men in those games, including a 40-0 shutout the last time these two teams played back in week 1 of 2023. So, Mina, I know we're 125 days away from this matchup. We love previewing things, though, here on NFL Live. So how do you see the matchup here between this high-powered Dallas Cowboys offense faring with that Giants defense?
Yeah, more changes on the Giants side of the ball, obviously, when it comes to that defense. I think for Dallas offensively, they need to do what offenses did last year to New York to mitigate that pass rush, and that's run the football. This Cowboys offense was extremely balanced last season, despite the fact, by the way, that their offensive line ranked 25th league-wide in continuity. They had many injuries, including losing their left tackle, Tyler Guyton, for over half the season, Cooper Beebe, their center as well, and they still had a top 10 rushing attack, in part because teams were so afraid of George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb on the field, they faced a ton of too high coverage and light boxes. Now, New York's run defense might be improved. We're going to get to that later with their additions, but if I'm Dallas, I test them where they were weakest last season and see if they can stop us on the ground.
Now, Hawk, we know that Dallas added some big additions in the first round on the defensive side of the ball, but what are your expectations offensively for this Cowboys team, given what they've done in free agency in the draft to this point?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think for the Dallas Cowboys offense, even coming close to their production from a year ago will be an incredible success for them for a couple of reasons, right? Like, they had such gaudy production, and a lot of that in turn was because they were out of football games so early. So you're seeing a lot of late game production because their defense was historically bad. The second part of that is Schottenheimer, George Pickens edition, like, they caught teams by surprise a year ago because you weren't quite sure what the offense was going to look like. You weren't quite sure how George Pickens was going to mess with CeeDee Lamb and all these weapons that have come together, Javonte Williams, Ferguson, and what have you. And now in year 2, all the defenses that they're going to play against are going to have a little bit of a playbook on them. And then lastly, the expectation is that their schedule is going to be increasingly harder this year than it was a year ago. And so what you're going to see is basically an offense that might not have the same numbers that we saw from last year, but they're going to be in games that are a lot tighter. Their defense will be improved. So hopefully that offense won't be on the field as much. And if they are in anywhere that vicinity, it's going to turn into more wins than they had in 2025.
Yeah, the Cowboys have told us with their offseason activity how they feel about their offense from last year. They're going to run it back. They re-signed Javonte Williams. They keep George Pickens on the franchise tag. If you talk to people in Dallas this offseason, it's been hard to get them to talk about the offense because they've all been talking about is how to improve the defense. One thing they have told me is they want to get better tackle play than they got last year. And Mina referenced some of the injuries they had on that offensive line. They believe in their young offensive tackles. They just want to see them take a step forward. But, you know, Javonte Williams, obviously a big key to what they do. A great running back for Brian Schottenheimer's scheme, as we saw last year. And George Pickens is a player we just haven't heard from. We've heard a lot of speculation about what he might be thinking regarding the franchise tag. We haven't heard him talk about it. Once he gets there for minicamp, we'll get some sense of where his mind is. But the fact that he signed that tag indicates it's full steam ahead for this Cowboys offense.
Yeah, the Cowboys have made it very clear they have no intentions of trading him. They do expect him to play on the franchise tag, but we'll see how things play out over the next couple of months. This was one of the most explosive offenses in the NFL last year. We'll see if they can continue. Some more news today as the Chargers agreed to terms with former Browns tight end David Njoku. One-year deal worth up to $8 million, according to NFL Network's Ian Rappaport. Njoku had his contract voided in Cleveland in early February because of injuries and other things that caused Njoku to miss 11 games over the last 2 seasons after he made the Pro Bowl in 2023. And that's not the only addition that the Chargers have made. Heavy additions along the offensive line, a unit that ranked dead last in pass block win rate last season. While they did lose guard Zion Johnson in free agency, the team added Tyler Biadasz and goal Cole Strange. In addition to that Njoku signing, as I said, they also added tight end Charlie Kolar as new offensive coordinator Mike McDaniel hopes to transform this offense for Justin Herbert. Here's McDaniel on expectations for Herbert this season.
I've challenged him to do things that he hasn't done up until this point. And, I did a ton of those week 1 on the field. As you'd expect, he enjoyed that process. What's been so interesting is how fast, how bold he can be trying new things that, typically elite performers don't like to try new things. It takes them out of your comfort zone. You don't feel as good. The result isn't as good. He's dropped the burden of something that could hold him back. He's really let go, been all in, tried new things from a performer such as himself.
Now, Hawk, I know that you played for Mike McDaniel in the later portion of your career, so I'm going to come to you first here. When I hear Mike McDaniel talk about Justin Herbert trying new things, I think about the expectations for this offense and what those new things could yield for an offense that really hasn't met expectation till this point. What are your expectations for how this pairing is going to work?
I think it's going to be a match made in heaven. I think we could see some historic football from both Mike McDaniel as a play caller as well as Justin Herbert as a quarterback, because the benefit of the talent that Justin Herbert is. When you think about Justin Herbert or anything that has kept him from matching this kind of generational talent from an arm perspective, athleticism, his ability to drive the football, Mike McDaniel is a savant at football. He's great at getting the talent that he has to maximize it. Again, I know that from experience as a 5'7" former number 1 receiver for him. But at the same time, he's never had a player under his tutelage quite like the talent that is Justin Herbert. And the things that Justin is going to benefit from is the obsessiveness Mike has around offensive football now in a role where he's not worried about the whole team. He's worried about the offense and specifically Justin Herbert. It's the reason why people like Kyle Shanahan can go from a Brian Hoyer and myself, and no offense to us, but when they go to Matt Ryan and Julio Jones, you see the legendary uptick in production. And I expect a very similar jump to Justin Herbert and his offense with Mike McDaniel.
I share Andrew's enthusiasm for Mike McDaniel's offense in LA. And I also am excited about the addition of the tight ends today in Njoku, because this was an offense that last year used 12, 13 personnel, 2 or 3 tight end sets at the lowest rate of any team in the entire NFL, less than 8% of the time. We're going to see a dramatic uptick in those numbers, I believe, because of the group that they've put together. Charlie Kolar, coming from Baltimore, is a very good blocker. Miranda Gadsden, you saw last year, can stretch the field. And Njoku can kind of do a little bit of everything. So you can put him in line, but you can also use him as a receiving threat, too. And I really think this offense is going to look kind of closer to what we saw, same city, in Los Angeles with the Rams, when they started using more 13 personnel to take advantage of defenses having to put a linebacker on the field and then finding those mismatches and throwing on them. When you look at Mike McDaniel's history in Miami and going back to San Francisco, these are offenses that used heavier personnel groupings, and less probably 11 personnel than the rest of the league. And I think that's going to continue, and we're going to see some evolution in Los Angeles, which I'm pretty excited to see play out.
Yeah, and Mina, watching their offseason and sort of how little they did at the wide receiver position in terms of change, but how much they did on the offensive line, some of which they had to because of free agent losses, and at tight end. I was talking to Chargers people at the Combine about how things are going to change for the offense with McDaniel coming in. And the answers were, personnel-wise, we're probably going to evaluate our offensive linemen differently than we had in the past. And maybe the same is true for the tight end group. So that has played out. They drafted 4 offensive linemen. Obviously, a huge key to their season will be the return to health of their tackles, Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt. Their absence last year was obviously a huge part of the reason it didn't come together. But I think the middle of that line will look a lot different in terms of who the people are, but also what they're being asked to do. And the role of the tight end will be very interesting to watch, especially with Njoku and his ability as a playmaker. So you hear Mike McDaniel talk about things that Justin Herbert is doing that he isn't necessarily used to or isn't necessarily comfortable with. But this has all been designed in a way to make it work as quickly as possible.
Graz, I'm glad you brought up that point because this O-line from a year ago really did get an incomplete grade. They lose Rashawn Slater before the season starts. Joe Alt out in week 9. A big reason Justin Herbert was sacked 54 times in 2025, which was the third most in the NFL. Week 2025, and today we check in on the last game of the regular season, a Sunday night football showdown between the Ravens and the Steelers.
The NFL's best rivalry of the last 3 decades adds another chapter to its storied legacy, with the winner winning the AFC North and the loser going home for the season.
All right, so be ready to empty the tank here. Well, we got 10 minutes.
Lamar in the shotgun.
Pressure coming, hit, spins out of a sack.
Looking for a man who's on the 5. He's got him! Zay Flowers! Touchdown Ravens! 3rd and goal from the Ravens 2. And the Steelers have regained the lead.
The Steelers now have to hold off the Ravens for 3:49.
Great protection, lob down the middle, wide open. Flowers in the 20, 10, 5, touchdown Ravens!
Plenty of time.
They need every second they can get because they are out of timeout. Exactly 1 minute remains. Lofting left, has a man wide open. It's Calvin Austin. Touchdown, Pittsburgh Steelers. And with 55 seconds left, the Steelers are up 26-24 with Boswell on to try the extra point.
Chris Boswell's extra point attempt is no good.
And now a field goal will win it for the Ravens.
Lamar takes the snap, lofts the ball. It is caught by Isaiah Likely.
A timeout, and they will bring on their rookie kicker, Tyler Loop.
A 44-yard field goal attempt.
Here's the snap. Here's the hold. Here's the boot by Loop. And that kick is no good. No good. It's wide right. No he good. Missed it. And your Pittsburgh Steelers are AFC North champions.
That game just had to come down to a missed field goal, didn't it? Let's take a look now at the Ravens offseason. After backing out of that Maxx Crosby trade due to a failed physical, Baltimore signed Trey Hendrickson to beef up its pass rush. And this new offense, while it lost some key veterans, it also made 11 picks in the draft, including taking guard Vega Ioane 14th overall. The Ravens also drafted 4 pass catchers to give Lamar Jackson some new weapons, led by Declan Doyle in this offense. So, Mina, a lot of new pieces in Baltimore, which should help things. But on the field specifically, what do you think needs to change for Baltimore to turn this around?
I think this defense just needs to be healthier than they were last season. FTN Fantasy has this great stat called adjusted games lost that looks at how many players were lost to injury for different units. And Baltimore's defense last year was 30th league-wide in health. So just being healthier, I think, is going to go a long way. They've made some really good additions. You saw there Calais Campbell, obviously Trey Hendrickson, drafted Zion Young. That should beef up the defensive line. But for me, a massive, massive piece of offseason news that people have been sleeping on is whether or not Nnamdi Madueke, their star defensive tackle, returns. Gone all of last season. This is the 3rd highest paid player on the entire roster. He's got a cap hit this year of close to $30 million. If he is on that defensive line, he unlocks the entire group because of the double teams he draws and his ability to penetrate in a way that made him earn that salary. But if he's not there, then you start to worry a little bit about the injury bug again. So I think this Ravens defense has the potential to take a great leap, really improve upon what we saw last year, but they got to be healthier.
Yeah, I'm with you, Mina. And I think your point about health is like an overarching sentiment around the Ravens because every year they have a team to contend for a Super Bowl. And the only thing that stands between them and actually doing that is typically injury, specifically to, yes, depth players and everybody on every other position but Lamar Jackson. When Lamar Jackson is healthy, they're a Super Bowl contender. It's quite simple in that way. And when you think of even Derrick Henry last year, who took a step back from 2 seasons ago, a large part of that is because when Lamar Jackson is out of the lineup, it's a little easier for defenses to to zero in on what your strength is. So even Derrick Henry being a year older, he's a modern marvel, and the expectation he will still be Derrick Henry. If Lamar Jackson is healthy for the duration of the season, they will be a Super Bowl contenders. And quite literally, it's that simple.
I'm glad you brought up the health aspect, both of you, especially that Madubuike injury. They lost in week 2. That was a tough one to overcome. But Graz, an interesting element of this offseason is the fact that Lamar Jackson's doing something that he normally doesn't, which is participating in the voluntary portion of workouts in the spring. What are you hearing about the expectations for him within Declan Doyle's offense, first-time play caller in the NFL, and Lamar trying to get that third MVP?
Yeah, obviously, I think they're very excited to have him there for the voluntary portion of the offseason because so much is new. Declan Doyle, as you mentioned, the new offensive coordinator, Jesse Minter, the new head coach. Neither has done this job before, and obviously a big help to have your starting quarterback in the building. It indicates that he's with the program and wants to learn as much as possible, as quickly as possible, so they can hit the ground running. Lamar Jackson has 2 years left on his contract with the Ravens. They talked to him about an extension this offseason, didn't get it done. He sees himself as in a window to win now with this team that is a perennial contender and expects to be once again. I think what will be interesting to watch is his involvement as a runner in their offense. Obviously, we go back to the beginning of his career, and this was a guy that was a threat to rush for 100 yards in any given game. More reluctant when he came back off of injury last year. And I'm curious to see how much of Declan Doyle's offense incorporates Lamar Jackson as a designed runner or whether he's moving into a new phase of his career where he does that a lot less.
Yeah, career low, 349 rushing yards for Lamar Jackson last season. That's something we're not used to seeing from somebody who's got wheels. All right, stay in the division. To Pittsburgh we go, where the decision or rather the wait for a decision from quarterback Aaron Rodgers is still ongoing. It was reported last week that Rodgers was expected to visit the Steelers over the weekend. Our Adam Schefter appeared on the Pat McAfee show earlier today with the latest.
The weekend, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday have come and gone. Aaron Rodgers was not at the facility once. The Steelers have a voluntary offseason workout program that begins 1 week from today. So with Aaron Rodgers, you never really know exactly what's right and what's not.
Of course.
But I've always felt like that May 18th date was a date that should be circled for him to come back. I still think the chances are that he comes back. I think most people believe he'll be back. He always could change his mind. He could always go the other way. I don't think anything's changed.
Okay, so I guess we're all waiting for May 18th as the next date we do an Aaron Rodgers check-in. But Mina, let's check in now with the pieces that they've added around the quarterback position in Pittsburgh. Is it enough for Pittsburgh to take the next step in 26?
Yeah, I think this offense is really optimized for this version of Aaron Rodgers, 2026 Aaron Rodgers. You know that you're going to see two things, quick game and a lot of it, and then they're going to want to run the football. And starting with quick game, I think the receiver additions in particular, Michael Pittman, Jeremy Bernard, who they drafted out of Alabama, will be really helpful in that regard because we know that Aaron Rodgers wants to throw the ball fast and he doesn't typically push the ball downfield very much. And then the run game, this was actually a very efficient rushing attack last year. They were 4th in success rate league-wide, and they made some additions. I think that'll continue that. Signing Rico Dowdle, who's an underrated free agent back, and then adding depth on the offensive line. Maxx Ianachor, who they drafted, gives him tackle depth out of ASU, Jennings Dunker as well. So I do think that should Aaron Rodgers decide to come back, he steps into an offense that is better than the one that he was in last season.
And to your point, Mina, that's by design. The Pittsburgh Steelers have operated this offseason like Aaron Rodgers will be back in the lineup. And they did flip a receiver room that was a weakness into a position of strength and depth even, because you bring Michael Pittman in, consummate professional. You go ahead and draft Jeremy Bernard, who is like the perfect kind of Pittsburgh Steelers receiver, the kind of receiver that turns into a fan favorite because he can pretty much do everything. He could be in the backfield. He could play inside. He could play outside. He likely slots in as their number 3 guy. He's a catch and run guy. He's a contested catch guy. And again, he's tough. He blocks, very similar to the Hines Ward kind of model of wide receiver. And then even Roman Wilson, who's a 3rd rounder from a year ago, is still there for depth, or a couple of years ago. So when you look at Aaron Rodgers, it's not only like, yes, the team is better. It's the best opportunity for him. And this is a team that is built to go beyond just the first round of the playoffs.
My question, though, Hawk, is Aaron Rodgers at the point in his career where he can elevate the Pittsburgh Steelers beyond where they've been? I mean, I agree that I like the roster better than I did a year ago going into this season. But you're talking about a 42-year-old Aaron Rodgers who hasn't been top 20 in the league in QBR since the year 2021. He played all but one game last year. Are we going to be able to count on him to do that again at his age? And if not, what do they have behind him? The big picture questions around the Steelers are all about what the quarterback situation is for the future, and they really won't get where they want to go until they answer that question. But they seem to be focusing on this year, getting Aaron Rodgers back and believing he's the guy that can take them beyond 9-10 wins, first round exit in the playoffs, which is something that's been a problem for them for more than half a decade now. I just don't know that we've seen that Aaron Rodgers in a very long time.
Okay, so while Rodgers' watch is going to continue, a deal did get done today in Pittsburgh. According to Adam Schefter, the Steelers have agreed to terms with kicker Chris Boswell. 4-year, $28 million extension. The $7 million average per year ties him with Brandon Aubrey for the highest paid kicker in the NFL. Boswell now locked in with the Steelers through the 2030 season. And one more signing made official today, wide receiver day, that the first Sunday night football game of the season will be between the Cowboys and the Giants in New York. It'll be the first time we see the Giants during the John Harbaugh era, and it's been a busy offseason for the Big Blue with a number of roster changes in year one under Harbaugh, including bringing in some former Ravens like Isaiah Likely and Patrick Ricard. The team also shipped Dexter Lawrence to Cincinnati prior to the draft, where they snagged one of their 2 top 10 picks in last month's draft, taking Ohio State linebacker Arvell Reese, 5th overall. The Reese pick was one that Harbaugh was noticeably happy about on draft night.
All right. The tape? Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, sir. Woo. We got our guy. We had this conversation, didn't we?
Yes, sir. We did. Let's do it.
We said God was going to make this happen, and he did.
Yes, sir.
He said that, yeah, with his chest. Like, you could tell how excited he was, Mina, that Arvell Reese is going to be a part of this defense. And there are a lot of changes in New York this offseason. So what do you think about their plans thus far?
Yeah, I think a major priority for New York, correctly so, was fixing the run defense that was amongst the worst in the entire NFL last year. Stat that honestly shocked me was they allowed 75 explosive runs, which was 10 more than the next closest defense. By comparison, the Super Bowl champs, Seattle, allowed just 28. And when you allow that many explosive runs, meaning 10 yards or more, it's a failure at all 3 levels up front at the linebacker group. The cornerbacks struggling with missed tackles as well. But linebacker was clearly the point of emphasis for this team, bringing in Tremaine Edmonds and then Arvell Reese, who you saw there. John Harbaugh knows good linebackers. He saw quite a few in Baltimore, and I think he understands the importance and the impact that Arvell can have playing off the ball in New York and trying to stop what was honestly a major, major issue last year. I said at the top that it allowed teams to avoid the Giants' pass rush, which was good, but it's hard to rush the passer when you're never in 3rd and long. So I do think run defense was a priority and one that we will see improve this year in New York.
I think when you ask what you think John Harbaugh's impact is going to be on the Giants, I think the answer is foundational. He is going to build out the kind of defense that he wants. Right now, Arvell Reese plays off-ball linebacker for them because they are set at pass rusher, and Arvell Reese is really good at that. Maybe someday he evolves into the kind of player that can help their pass rush when that becomes a greater need. But John Harbaugh is not going to tolerate 75 explosive runs given up by his defense. He'll continue to make changes until stuff like that stops happening. And I think that's what you're seeing the way he's building it out. They pick Arvell Reese at 5, kind of a lucky break. They didn't expect him to be there. At 10, they had Caleb Downs teed up, with the defense all set to go. They end up taking the offensive tackle who's going to play guard for them as a rookie. Just sort of Harbaugh building out like the nitty-gritty fundamental parts of this that he wants to be the foundation for the team. And I think a lot of their offseason moves You've seen that. We know what Jackson Dart can be, spectacular. If Malik Neighbors comes back healthy, obviously spectacular. But it's the basics, I think, where Harbaugh really wanted to attack this offseason.
Yeah, the investment in the trenches from Arvell Reese to CeCe Maui Noah, we know that they are bolstering what's going on up front. But there's been a rumor this offseason we've been following, a potential reunion. Odell Beckham Jr. maybe going back to the Giants. John Harbaugh spoke about that possibility over the weekend.
It's got to be right for both parties. And, Odell wants to be the kind of player that can make a difference. I'm pretty sure that he can make a team in the National Football League, right now. But can he make a difference, and is it something he wants to do, and is his body going to hold up in the way he wants it to? All those things are questions that need to get answered for anybody at that age, Now, Odell, he's confident, man. He's confident, he's working hard, and he believes in himself. So I think we'll just play it out over the next month and into training camp and see where we're at.
So John Harbaugh, obviously confident that Odell Beckham Jr. can make any team in the NFL. Can he make this team, Graz? What are you hearing about where things stand between Odell and the Giants?
Yeah, he can. A couple of weeks ago, this sounded like it was on the verge of happening, and obviously it hasn't yet. And you hear John Harbaugh talk about where things stand. He references training camp. I don't think a player in Odell's situation is in a hurry to hustle in and get there for mandatory minicamp in June. So I think this is something that probably comes together, if at all, in June or July. I think, a lot of it will depend on Malik Neighbors and his recovery from injury. Is that a spot where the Giants have a need? Odell Beckham didn't play last year. The last time we saw him, he was not the kind of player that was a difference maker. Good player, and he can do what they need him to do. But what would the role be? What would the need be? These are the kinds of questions I think get fleshed out here over the next month or so.
And Hawk, Graz is talking about the need because we know that Malik Neighbors likely not ready for the start of the season given when he got injured last year. So as you pair this together, what do you think about a potential reunion of OBJ in New York?
I love the story. I think OBJ could absolutely make a team. He's a veteran presence. He understands. He's worked really, really hard since the last time we've seen him in an NFL uniform. And I think to Graz's point, the training camp, the offseason stuff is kind of a moot point of someone of his caliber. To that end, I don't know about the kind of impact he would make on the Giants. I think there are other teams where Odell makes a better impact as far as a player, but what the Giants need, regardless of where Malik Neighbors is if you're going to bring a veteran in, he needs to actually move this offense forward, especially with so many young pieces. I think of Stefon Diggs, again, free agent. You see what he's done for Drake May a year ago, being like a stability weapon for that offense, for the New England Patriots. If they're able to get into that, what I would call a sweepstakes for an older receiver who was obviously very much still productive, came off an ACL a year ago and still had the season he had, someone like that makes an impact for the Giants. A veteran receiver plugs right in as a number 2 behind Malik Neighbors, who is going to need somebody to take the pressure off of him because everyone understands as it pertains to the pass game, regardless of where he is with his injury, it will go through Neighbors. So he's going to need that balance.
So we keep talking about Odell Beckham Jr.'s age. So he's 33 years old. He has not played a game since December 2024 with the Dolphins. He also spent the 2023 season in Baltimore with John Harbaugh. So maybe a reunion coming. And since we're on the topic of another former NFL wide receiver, one tweeted out that he still got it. Oh, yeah, that's our very own Andrew Hawkins said, quote, "I am a 40-year-old former wide receiver 3, and I promise you that most Division I defensive backs cannot cover me right now." I believe there was a $500,000 offer on the table. Hawk, you care to explain this one?
Please. My Twitter is supposed to be completely separate from the professional Andrew Hawkins that we see on NFL Live. But I will say, yes, I am a former NFL player that has a former NFL player's mindset that still believes he is He-Man, and I am willing to put that to the test. I work out with my son. I'm out here on football fields across South Florida, and all the response I get is, "Man, you still got it." Now, I don't know if they're being nice,
right? But
I'd like the competition in me to start to put this to the test. So if anybody out there wants to step up, we have plenty of camera people here at ESPN.
Yeah, Mino, you look like you've got something there. You want to try this with Hawk?
No, just when you said they say you still got it, are these children who are giving you this feedback, or?
Yes, these are 14-year-olds.
Is it possible we could see some video,
they don't stand
Andrew?
a chance. You know
Hey,
what? Let's get some footage.
I wonder if
that's what I'll work
Orlovsky
on.
could stay within 5 yards of you. I know you opened this up to, college DBs out there, but we've got somebody here who might want to take advantage of some of these sweepstakes. But nonetheless, Hawk, good luck to you. I know you said that you're in this until your Achilles ruptures, so hopefully that does not happen if you end up challenging somebody.
I could cut one of my feet off,
man.
Courtney, and Orlovsky won't be able to stay within 5 yards of me.
Wow. There's the smoke.